Imagine a world on a knife's edge, where every decision teeters on the brink of catastrophe. Above it hangs a single button, a solitary point of control over unimaginable destruction. This button is not just a piece of machinery, it is a symbol of ultimate power and responsibility. This is the world we've built, a world where the red button, the ultimate weapon, casts a long shadow over our collective consciousness. It represents the fine line between peace and annihilation. But who would dare press it? What kind of person would take on the burden of such a monumental decision? And what would drive them to such a fateful decision? Is it fear, anger, or a desperate sense of duty? The truth is, the red button isn't just a physical object, it's a manifestation of our deepest fears and our highest stakes. It's a symbol of the immense power we hold, the power to destroy ourselves and our planet. This power is both a privilege and a curse. It's a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the ever-present danger of conflict in the nuclear age. Every diplomatic meeting, every peace treaty, is a step away from the brink. We live in a world where tensions simmer between nations, where the slightest misstep could lead to disaster. Ideologies clash, resources dwindle, and the threat of terrorism casts a dark cloud over our future. These are the pressures that weigh on the decision-makers. In this volatile landscape, the red button represents the ultimate act of aggression, an act with consequences too terrible to comprehend. It is the final option when all else fails. Yet, the button itself is powerless. It is merely a tool, waiting for a human hand to give it purpose. It's the will of a human being, driven by fear, anger, or desperation, that would unleash its devastating power. The true danger lies not in the button, but in the hearts and minds of those who might press it. History offers chilling reminders of how close we've come to the brink. The Cuban Missile Crisis, a tense standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union in 1962, brought the world to the precipice of nuclear war. For 13 days, the fate of humanity hung in the balance as leaders on both sides grappled with unimaginable pressure. Mistakes were made, miscalculations occurred, and for a brief moment the world held its breath. The crisis was averted, but the lessons learned remain etched in our collective memory. The Cuban Missile Crisis demonstrated the terrifying speed at which a conflict could escalate to the nuclear level. It showed the world the devastating consequences of miscommunication and mistrust between nuclear-armed nations. The echoes of that crisis still resonate today, reminding us that the potential for nuclear conflict has not vanished. In the heat of the moment, when tensions are high and communication breaks down, the battlefield becomes a chaotic and unpredictable environment. Rational thought can easily give way to fear and panic. The fog of war, with its confusion and uncertainty, can cloud judgment and lead to disastrous decisions. Soldiers and commanders alike find themselves grappling with incomplete information and the pressure to act swiftly. Imagine a scenario where a false alarm, a technical malfunction, or a misinterpretation of intelligence leads a nation to believe it's under attack. The stakes are incredibly high and the margin for error is razor thin. Under such immense pressure, with the clock ticking, the temptation to retaliate, to strike first, could prove overwhelming. The decision-making process becomes fraught with peril, as leaders weigh the potential consequences of their actions. The possibility of a nuclear strike launched in error, a horrifying accident with global consequences, is a chilling reminder of the stakes involved. The chain reaction of events that could follow is almost too terrifying to contemplate. The fog of war doesn't allow for second chances. Once a decision is made, its repercussions are often irreversible, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. We must remember that in the nuclear age, there are no winners, only survivors. The devastation wrought by such weapons is beyond comprehension, affecting generations to come. A nuclear war, however it begins, would be a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. The immediate impact would be devastating, but the long-term effects would be even more harrowing. The radioactive fallout, the environmental devastation, and the loss of human life would be unlike anything our world has ever seen. The scars left behind would serve as a grim reminder of the horrors of war. The threat of accidental nuclear war is not a relic of the past. While international treaties and safeguards have been put in place to reduce the risk, the potential for human error or technical malfunction remains a real concern. Aging nuclear arsenals, complex early warning systems, and the possibility of cyber attacks all contribute to a climate of uncertainty. Consider the risk of a cyber attack on a nuclear command and control system. A sophisticated hack could disable communication networks, compromise early warning systems, or even provide false information, potentially leading to a catastrophic miscalculation. The potential consequences of such an event are too grave to ignore. The world's nuclear powers must work together to strengthen cybersecurity measures, enhance communication channels, and reduce the risk of accidental launch. The future of humanity depends on our ability to manage these risks, to ensure that the weapons we've created never fall into the wrong hands or are unleashed by accident. Section 5. The Price of Pride. Beyond the fog of war and the threat of accidents, there's another, more insidious danger: the human ego. This unseen force can drive decisions that lead to catastrophic outcomes, often without the decision-maker even realizing the full extent of the consequences. National pride, ideological zealotry, and the pursuit of power can all lead to dangerous escalations. These elements, when combined, create a volatile mix that can push nations to the brink of conflict, often over issues that could have been resolved through dialogue and diplomacy. Imagine a leader driven by a need to appear strong, to project an image of invincibility, even in the face of overwhelming odds. This leader might prioritize their own image over the well-being of their people, making decisions that escalate tensions rather than diffuse them. Such a leader might be tempted to use nuclear weapons as a tool of intimidation, a way to assert dominance on the world stage. The mere threat of such power can create a climate of fear and uncertainty, destabilizing global peace. The pursuit of power, unchecked by reason or compassion, can blind us to the consequences of our actions. It can lead to decisions that prioritize short-term gains over long-term stability, causing irreversible damage. It can lead to a dangerous game of brinkmanship, where nations push each other closer and closer to the edge, risking annihilation in the process. This high-stakes gamble often leaves little room for error, and the cost of a misstep can be devastating. We must remember that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the courage to build a more peaceful and just world. It requires a commitment to understanding and cooperation, to finding common ground even in the most challenging circumstances. A world where dialogue replaces threats, where cooperation triumphs over competition, and where the pursuit of power is tempered by wisdom and compassion. This vision of the future is within our reach, but it requires us to look beyond our pride and embrace a shared humanity. Section 6. A world held hostage. The existence of nuclear weapons creates a climate of fear and mistrust that affects us all. It diverts resources from vital programs like healthcare, education, and environmental protection. It fuels a global arms race, where nations pour vast sums of money into developing ever more destructive weapons. The threat of nuclear war hangs over humanity like a sword of Damocles, a constant reminder of our own mortality. This fear can paralyze us, making it difficult to address the pressing challenges facing our planet, such as climate change, poverty, and disease. We must not allow fear to dictate our future. The world's nations have a moral obligation to work towards the elimination of nuclear weapons. We must create a global security system that is not based on the threat of annihilation but on the principles of cooperation, diplomacy, and mutual respect. Section 7. The weight of a choice. The decision to use nuclear weapons would be the gravest choice any leader could ever make. It would have consequences that would reverberate far beyond the immediate blast radius, affecting generations to come. The moral, ethical, and environmental implications of such an act are almost unimaginable. Imagine the weight of that decision, the knowledge that pushing that button would unleash a firestorm of destruction, ending countless lives and poisoning the planet for centuries. It's a burden no human being should ever have to bear. We must remember that the people in power, the ones with their fingers on the button, are human beings just like us. They have families, they have dreams, and they have a responsibility to protect the future. We must hold them accountable for their actions and demand that they prioritize peace over conflict, diplomacy over destruction. Section 8. Beyond the button. The true solution lies not in building more weapons or strengthening defenses, but in changing the way we think. We must move beyond the paradigm of deterrence, the idea that we can prevent war by threatening to destroy each other. Instead, we must cultivate a culture of peace, one based on dialogue, understanding, and respect for our shared humanity. We must teach our children to resolve conflicts peacefully, to value diversity, and to embrace empathy. The future of our planet depends on our ability to transcend our differences, to recognize our interconnectedness, and to work together to create a world where the red button is nothing more than a relic of a darker past. Section 9. Our Shared Destiny. The question of who will press the red button first is ultimately the wrong question to ask. The real question is, can we create a world where the button no longer exists, a world where the threat of nuclear annihilation is nothing more than a distant memory? The answer lies in our hands. Each and every one of us has a role to play in building a more peaceful and just world. We can start by demanding that our leaders prioritize diplomacy over military action, by supporting organizations working for nuclear disarmament, and by educating ourselves and others about the dangers of nuclear weapons. The future is not predetermined. We have the power to choose a different path, to create a world where the red button is nothing more than a reminder of a dangerous past, a past we have vowed never to repeat. Our shared destiny depends on it.